Thank you. We'll move on to legislative reports, County Council legislation. We have County Council member Deb Young here as a panelist to answer questions. So with that, Ms. Luking.
Thank you. For my second report this evening, it is on Council Bill 9 regarding the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance, which was introduced during the January session of the Howard County Council by Council member Deb Young. I would like to provide a brief overview of this bill and the staff's work with the sponsor to date. As originally introduced, the main amendment within the bill altered the existing exemption for special affordable housing within closed school districts. The new provision required a representative from the project or phase of a project to meet with the designee of the superintendent and secure a reassignment or capacity solution in writing prior to the application for state grants and credits. Securing a solution also replaced the current consideration requirements for the County Council as part of the approval of the payment in lieu of taxes or resolution to proceed. Your report outlines the concerns staff had with the bill as drafted, specifically with the ability to secure solutions, which implied required actions by the board and the school system. Following an initial discussion with the Legislative Committee in early January, staff worked directly with Councilmember Young to propose language that would address this concern. After a public hearing and a work session on the bill earlier this week, Ms. Young has shared an updated version of the bill, which you will find attached to your report this evening that is labeled 124 from the work session on Monday. The new amendments contain the language staff suggested, which call for the Department of Planning to be involved in the meetings for further collaboration, as well as a replacement of the problematic securing of a solution with the language to facilitate discussion of the projected impact of the development on the school system and potential strategies to address the identified impact, with the understanding that such strategies are not binding on the Howard County Public School System. We are very appreciative of Ms. Young's willingness to include the school system thoughts. The new amendments also contain a requirement for such potential strategies to be prepared in a written report by the Howard County Public School System and submitted to the County Council. Our staff is capable of providing this information. There are some lingering concerns with the overall, or considerations rather, for the overall impact and implementation of this bill. The overarching issue has been the timing of the meeting and the information being provided with the written report to the Council. The data used to determine projected impacts of the development and potential strategies discussed will be a snapshot in time from data provided by others and current projections of the school system at the time of the meeting, all of which are subject to change due to multiple variables. Once the exemption goes forward to the County Council, which can happen, I understand, a year or more out from the developer's application of state credits, it is very likely these data points will have changed. This could conceivably lead to similar issues that have arisen in the past, where comparison of public reports put the school system in a position for those not familiar with school planning data and process to say information that Hcpss is providing is wrong or could not be trusted. Staff fully understands the needs for our elected officials to have the best available information when making important decisions related to affordable housing. Similarly, the school system appreciates having a seat at the table as new developments are considered, which increases collaboration and awareness for all stakeholders. Given everything I have outlined, the Legislative Committee thought it prudent to bring this bill forward to the full board this evening for discussion and a position if that is the will of the board. The bill is slated for action by the County Council during their February 7th legislative session. And as Ms. Cotronio noted, to facilitate our discussion this evening, Councilmember Young has been invited, as well as Mr. Lubley and Mr. Rogers are here to answer any staff questions.
Thank you, Councilperson Young, for being here. We have Dr. Wu.
Okay, I forget it, Laura, but I have a question. First, thank you, Ms. Lukins, and thank you, Councilmember Ms. Young. Thanks for your proposal. I think the concern is the solution. Right? We're not able to really get a solution. It's a proposal or engagement. That's our approach, right?
Correct. The new language talks about a meeting to facilitate the discussion and talk about potential solutions that wouldn't be binding on the school system.
So then what's the concern? I mean, get engaged, right? Get involved. How to mitigate the school overcrowding during the construction or approval, right? Before the approval. I think it's kind of pretty good approach. Preventive approach to really address the overcrowding issue. So what's the concern there? If we're not providing just the engagement and the suggestion.
I don't know if that's a question for other board members, but as I outlined the staff, just the considerations about the timeline is all that and I'm not sure if Ms. Young wants to speak to this, if there's been discussions, because this has been unfolding very quickly, so.
Ms. Young?
Thank you, Ms. Ludicky. First, and good evening to the members of the board, Dr. Martirano, and although it was only a short period of time, it was so great to see everybody in person on the school district staff for the few minutes that I was actually in the room tonight in person. I will say that I have been, well, first, I want to thank Ms. Ludicky because she has been great to work with. We have really, I think, gotten our heads together over this bill, and she has given me a really very good insight into the concerns that the legislative committee had and that the school district may have. And I will share with you yet another update, which is to let you know that I am considering putting in another amendment to change the timing a little bit that I hope would make it easier both for the affordable housing developer who's seeking the Apfo waiver, as well as the school district. So that the school district, and I'm thinking about you, Mr. Lubley and Mr. Rogers, I don't want you to have to write report after report. So this morning I met with Mr. Engel to talk about the timing of this report and when it would be most efficacious, both from the developer's perspective as well as the school district's perspective. And one possibility that we are now contemplating is to have the developer simply notify the school district when they are applying for the LIHTC credits, so that the school district isn't actually having to create a report that at that point in time, but the school district does know that there's a possibility that a large development is coming down the road with 60 apartments and X number of bedrooms, et cetera. And at that point in time, it wouldn't be necessary to actually have a meeting because the developer doesn't know if they have actually been awarded the LIHTC credits. Following the award of the LIHTC credits is when they would meet with this school district and give them the final numbers, because at that point it would obviously be more concrete. But that presumably would at least give the school district a year, maybe 2 years, to have that in their back pocket, knowing that that may occur. And the reason for doing that is if you look at it from a non-affordable housing developer, they come in, and if there is a school that's over capacity, they're put in a weight bin. And that weight bin can be from 3 to 4 years. And of course, if the schools actually have been up before that, they could potentially be able to start their development when the schools become open. But that weight bin gives the school district, if the schools remain closed, 3 to 4 years to build in whatever it is that the school district needs to be building in to accommodate those students. And if there's no accommodation, it gives the school district an opportunity to plan other strategies to potentially accommodate those students who are coming in, or to remind the county council and the county executive that the school district will need money in order to accommodate them from a capital perspective. And I'm thinking that at least getting this notification from the regarding a potential Apfo waiver at the time that the LIHTC credits are being applied for will give the school district that period of time or more time than you might have right now. And it will also, it will help in the planning period, and it will help in the decision-making that the county council has as well, when we have to choose between, oh, we are going to pursue or we're going to proceed on affordable housing in this particular instance, knowing that we're going to have to also overcrowd schools, which is an unenviable position to be in. But knowing that there are potential strategies to deal with those students who might be overcrowding those schools is really is a very helpful piece of information, I think, for all of us to have.
Ms. Mosley?
Thank you for talking about the bill. I personally don't support this bill because I feel like it's adding another hoop for the school system to go through during a time when the pressure is really on the due diligence of the developer and also the due diligence of the funding authorities for capital projects. I might think it would be more useful for our county to break this cycle of overcrowded schools, deferred maintenance in schools, and the conflict that growing our communities and building affordable housing for people in our community would be to provide funding for a school system to build these capital projects. And part of the problems with having the funding for the capital projects is the cycles that the school system has to work within. There are many laws and different things that the school system capital planning team has to deal with in regards to how frequently an area can be renovated, how frequently an area can, how many portables the county should have, things like that. So when I see bills that come forward that are adding an additional layer of a hoop for the school system, which isn't going to change anything that they have control over in the moment, for something that is included in due diligence, I feel like it should also have a trigger to either lessen some of these burdens that the school system has to go through for funding and capital projects, or it should actually change those policies and laws that require those different wait times and different things like that to actually not just be waiting for something to happen, but actually triggering things to happen, funding sources for capital projects, land for capital projects, things like that. I don't think that the burden should only be on the school system to provide this information during a due diligence time when it does no impact on them, and all of that information on school capacities and utilization strategies and things like that, feasibility studies are all available publicly for during the due diligence time. Thanks.
Ms. Mosley, I could not agree with you more. I would love to see some sort of trigger that when the school system was telling us that a school was going to be way over capacity, that it would trigger something at the county level that would mean the county would have to then consider how we were going to fund the school district to help respond to that need. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to do anything about that. I'm sure that you know that our county is very county executive centric, so we don't have the ability to make those types of decisions. But boy, I think that would be great. I would love to see this bill able to take that step, but I'm afraid that as a county council member, I'm not in a position to do that. And I do just want to also mention that while I realize it would be a small administrative burden, I just want to remind everybody that this Apfo waiver process has only occurred, I think, twice in the last 5 years. So it's not something that happens frequently, fortunately. And it seems to be getting triggered over and over again because of the Enterprise Foundation, which is rebuilding all of the townhomes that are surrounding Wild Lake High School, Wild Lake Middle School, and the attendant elementary schools, because the number of units is going to be doubled. So it's going from 150 units to 300 units. Not of affordable housing, but of a mix of affordable housing. They're replicating the number of affordable units they have right now at 150, and then they're adding 150 market rate houses or market rate apartments. So that's one of the reasons why this has occurred just recently and will be occurring again probably in the near future, although we have already grandfathered in the Enterprise Foundation for its next request, so that this particular administrative type of system would not go into effect in their next round of Apfo waivers. But maybe they'll just come to the school district anyway, and maybe they'll just be able to give us a report anyway, which would be great. But that will be, apparently will be coming to us quite soon for their next project, which is right down the street from their first one.
Thank you. We're like hitting our dinner break. So if you have questions for Councilmember Young, otherwise we will continue the discussion after our dinner break. Ms. Mallow?
I can hold my comments until after the dinner break. I don't believe it involves questions for Councilwoman Young or commentary to my colleagues. So,
Dr. Wu?
I will hold my question.
So no other, okay. And I just want to quickly thank Councilmember Young for doing this. Kind of evolved from Rosalind Rise and working together. And I sat there and said, yeah, we should be talking earlier in the process. And Enterprise actually agreed because there's other things that we can do besides capital projects. And so that it really came organically from that. So I want to thank you for taking action and always advocating for the school system as you do. With that, we're going to continue this discussion after the dinner break with the county council legislation, CB9. And I believe we left off with Ms. Mallow with her hand raised.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chair Catranio. So, like Ms. Mosley, I do not support this bill in its current state. It currently, while it has lofty aims, it puts the onus of responsibility on the school system rather than on the developer who is seeking the Apfo waiver. And we absolutely need more affordable housing in this county. And the redevelopment of Rosalind Rise is just one example of where it's being done in our community. And I believe that an administrative solution is at this point preferable to a legislated solution. Administratively, this could be directed to have happen, and or if the bill were modified in a way that put the onus on the parties seeking the Apfo waiver, I could consider supporting it. But as it's currently written, drafted, and even proposed amended, since we have not yet seen the full text of the proposed amendments, I think it's placing an undue burden on the school system that well, some may think it small, it's still a precedent that I think shouldn't be established in legislation within our county. So I just wanted to share with my colleagues where I stood on this issue. If there is, if we are taking a position on it.
Dr. Will, you had your hand raised before the dinner break. Do you still have a question? I wanted to circle back to you.
I think.
Or do you have not a question, but
yeah,
you want to speak?
It's not a question, right? I think it's really, it's not like affordable or not affordable housing, or it's really how do we address the school crowding, working with the county legislators, right? So I think we shouldn't put like one group against each other group. It's how do we work together for the school system. And we need to put our students, whenever they come, where they come, we need to put it in the classroom. And then we need the capacity there. I think that's the question we're talking about. And the developers, as Ms. Young, Council Member Young said, they are working with them, right? They actually agree to work with them and work with us. I think that will build a great pipeline to really streamline the process, right? Then the developer actually know when they can have capacity and the APFO regulation, everything will come together. I hope every stakeholder come together, or work together. I think that's the intention of this, because we're not looking for solution. Instead, we're working on the engagement. Is that right? I think I got a confirmation earlier, right? It's not we're try to say, okay, you are not able to develop there. No, that's not the intent. The intention is how to work together, find a solution. But I think that's the intent of this bill. I think I'm supporting this one.
Ms. Watts.
Sorry, I was trying to help Ms. Harrison. I basically want to say something similar to what Ms. Mallow said, but I'll keep this one short. Now that we even have a proposal for modified language, I don't really foresee that the board can take a position on this, not even knowing what the language is going to be. So I do agree that this is something that can be handled in an administrative manner. It's simply a checklist item. It's something that developers could go through a process and end up at this point and then check this off, this meeting, check it off, as opposed to putting kind of an extra burden on our staff. So my suggestion would be that the board not take a position on this until we get the modified language, and then we can revisit it at the next meeting and then kind of go forward from there. I'm not sure if the language difference would actually change anybody's mind, because I do actually still think that it could be handled administratively. So I just want to throw that out there, and then maybe make a motion after my colleagues have wrapped up.
Dr. Liu?
So first, I really like the idea that people work together, because I see the language on page 7. It says that the council shall invite the county executive and the board of education to attend the meeting and participate in a collaborative working discussion of school capacity needs and the board's proposed solution. I really like that idea, because I think that we do need to work together, plan ahead, and see how can we solve the school overcrowding issue from the planning stage. But I also hear the concern from my colleague that the concern about the burden on the Hcpss staff. So my question is, for the list of items in the school capacity chart, which ones can be provided by developer? For example, when I see on page number 6, number 4, it says a list of approved or in-process subdivision plans, including name of development, location, and the proposed units assigned to each school boundary. I think the information will be very helpful for us. But if the developer could provide this, that can reduce the burden on Hcpss staff and also at the same time provide the board with very useful information. So my question is, which information could be provided by developers inside of our staff?
Oh, go ahead, Dan. I was gonna.
Thank you for that question. One thing I want to point out is that the legislation does add some requirements. Not all the requirements are for Hcpss staff. The basis of the requirements are a report that is to be provided to the County Council by the Howard County Department of Planning and Zoning. The information as far as pending developments in their current process is information that the Howard County Department of Planning and Zoning would have. So they would be able to provide that information to the county council.
But on page 6, it says that the Department of Planning and Zoning shall receive the school capacity chart from the Board of Education, accompanied by a report that contains the full information. So the school capacity chart is from the school board, and then the report not necessarily from our school system?
Correct. It would be a collaborative effort between the Office of School Planning and the Department of Planning and Zoning. Okay. You are correct that the school capacity chart does come from Office of School Planning, which does include multiple bits of information, but it would be a collaborative effort with DPZ.
Okay. So how much burden do you think, additional burden will be on our staff? So is that doable? Is that feasible for the for HCSS staff to handle this?
As Ms. Mallow pointed out, it would be additional work. I think the largest impact would be the timing of when that timing happens. As initially noted, the initial report and meeting is to happen relatively in a longer or earlier time than we would normally have it. And that would cause potential concern of misinformation. Mm-hmm. That has been a point of discussion where maybe an update would be needed. That would be additional information. As far as the basis of work that would have to happen, the potential impact is a piece of the puzzle that school planning has to do anyways. As the developers come on and it is identified to Department of Planning and Zoning, that information is provided to the Office of School Planning, and those prospective students are added into their future projections. So that portion of this report is something that school planning would have to do anyways. So that's why it comes back to a timing and then the frequency of when that would have to do. One of the items that we currently do not do currently is to come up with those potential strategies. That would be additional effort that we would have to do to provide this information to the county council.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So do you have any suggestions about the timing? So if the timing is an issue, do you have any alternate solutions to address the timing issue?
At this moment, I do not have a recommended solution specifically to the timing. I believe that is a discussion that would be best had with the county, Hcpss, and potential developers as representatives. So it's a collaborative discussion. There are parts of both the county and the developers know that Hcpss staff are not normally involved with. So I think that's more of a discussion that we have to have collaboratively to come up to, one, to identify what the actual timing issues are, and then come up with a joint recommendation of how to solve that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So I want to state my position. So first, I really like the idea that people work collaboratively. I think that would be very, very important. But I do see that there are some concerns about the timing. So I would like to see the amended the new language before I make decision on this one. But I do really like the collaborative part of this. Yeah, thank you.
Jen, do you have your hand raised again?
I do, Ms. Catronian.
Pardon?
I do have my hand raised again, but as does Ms. Watts and Dr.
You were first though, so.
Okay. I do want to clarify for my colleagues that this bill only applies to affordable housing. So affordable housing right now is not the primary driver of our overcrowded schools. The largest amount of development going on are high density housing developments in pretty much along the Route 1 corridor. And most of those do not contain affordable housing units, let alone if there are some, it's usually medium income affordable housing, and they're not seeking these tax benefits and tax credits that Ms. Young referred to. So I love the idea of collaboration and working together. And I don't think that the impact that you're hoping to see from this particular bill is really going to weigh in on that, because most of those are waiting out the time in the Apfo waiver bin, as opposed to seeking, or not the Apfo waiver bin, but the Apfo bin, as opposed to this affordable housing waiver exemptions. So keep in mind that we're actually not making a decision on this bill. The only thing we can do at this stage is say, yes, I support this bill as written, or no, I don't support this bill as written. It is, we don't have deliberative decision-making on this bill. We have, what do we as a school board support? And so for that reason, as written, I'm not in favor of it, but also think about when you're talking about this big impact, that in terms of how it's going to affect overcrowded schools, it's not a huge impact on overcrowded schools.
Miss Watts and Dr. Wu have their hand raised. If you could just be succinct,
sure.
So we can move on. Okay, go ahead.
I move that the board take a position of oppose for CB9-2022.
Second.
Dr. Wu?
And I would suggest we wait until Ms. Young, Councilmember Young, have final version, then come back, because she said there will be some amendment again, right? We have a more complete version, then we'll take it back again, and then we'll look at that during the next legislation session.
Danielle, when are they voting on this, County Council?
Then the bill would come before the council again on February 7th during their next legislative session.
Would it be possible to add this on to like one of our budget work sessions because we're not going to meet again until after they vote, right, as a board?
Correct. I think our next legislative report would be February 10th. So I'm not sure of the timing of the budget work sessions.
We have a work session next Thursday. I'm just thinking, trying to kind of meet my colleagues halfway here. I obviously support this bill just because it came from an experience with Roslyn Rise where if conversations had happened earlier, a meeting with the school system, there may have been different decisions made or different strategy. For example, they started, I think it's 300 units, right, Mr. Lubley, total for all of the projects. And so they put most of their units at Roslyn Rise, which feeds into what we thought was an overcrowded school. But there are other projects that they have that feed into Swansfield, which is not an overcrowded school, which is a renovated school, which has a bigger cafeteria, which has a bigger, an auxiliary gym. And they even said during the testimony, like, oh yeah, that would have been a good conversation. There's other things that can be done if there are conversations that happen early on. This isn't, again, school system versus affordable housing. I always feel like solutions can be found, but we have to start the conversations earlier. And so that's where this came from. That's why I think it's important to start this process early. The timing, I understand what you want to see the final language, but those get amended all the time that we support. And the change that would be made would be something that we would support anyway, because it's I guess it's less of a burden on our school staff. So there's no reason why we wouldn't support that anyway. So if my colleagues are amenable to adding this on to our budget work session so that we can vote when the final language, then I would agree to that, but I'm against the motion. I'm going to support the bill.
So Ms. Catronio, can I weigh in? I didn't get to finish my thought, but So the timing of it, the board needs to take a position. So either we take a position now, like the legislative committee actually is not going to be able to take a position for the board, right? We can't.
Well, it doesn't need to be the legislative. The board needs to take the position, and we don't meet as a body until after the county council votes, and it's pointless. We need to submit our position to the county council, or let them know if we support the bill. It's important for the sponsor to have that. So it's for us to wait until the language, and our next board meeting is until after they vote. It's pointless at that point, unless it's held. So,
and that's what I'm saying. Like the legislative committee is not in the position to speak for the board. So it's fine if we wanted to take a position, but we take a position, we bring it to the board, and then the board decides whether we support that position. So we need to decide today. And so the same thing that Mrs. Nallo said, whatever the language is being added, it's not taking the burden off our school staff. This could be a completely administrative issue. So I'm not withdrawing my motion. We can please call the vote on it, and we can go forward.
Mr. Banos.
May I ask what an administrative solution would look like?
Sure. The same thing I talked to you about earlier is that, and maybe Ms. Mallow wanted to speak what she envisions too. So for me, there's a process that the developers go through, right, to get from step A to step Z, and along that process, there is an opportunity for this to be inserted into their workflow. Is
that checklist determined by law?
No, I don't. Not every stage. Mr. Lubley, is that correct? Not every stage of it is determined by law.
That would be correct. If it is not codified within the law, then it can be a checklist item, which is, for talking points, recommended or suggested, but it's not enforceable if it's not within the law.
Gotcha. Okay. And what authority decides what's on that checklist?
Planning and zoning.
That would be, the checklist is the Department of Planning and Zoning with Howard County. So it would be their checklists. I'm not sure of their processes, if they take it up through the county executive or to the county council, or if it's an item that they themselves choose.
Okay, thank you.
And remember, Apfo is law. The whole premise of Apfo is law. It's not suggestions. We can call the Ms. Mallow. Just be real quick. I think
I just wanted to speak that you can have things that are regulatory as opposed to written into legislation, and that is largely how the Department of Planning and Zoning works with regards to these things. Not everything has been legislated, but regulatory guidelines, those kind of things.
Okay, let's call the vote. Everyone has had a chance to speak at least once who wanted to.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Watts and a second by Ms. Mosley to move that the board take a position of opposed for CB9-2022. Dr. Liu?
No.
Ms. Mallow?
Yes.
Mr. Banez?
No.
Ms. Mosley?
Yes.
Ms. Watts?
Yes.
Dr. Wu?
No.
Ms. Catronio?
No.
Motion fails 3-4.
I move to take a position of support for CB9.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Catronio and a second by Dr. Wu to...
Point of order, I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Do you mean with amendments?
Yes, thank you. As amended.
I want to make a comment.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Catronio and a second by Dr. Wu to move that the board take a position of support for CB9-2022 as amended. Dr. Liu?
Yes.
Ms. Mallow?
No.
Mr. Banez?
Abstain.
Ms. Mosley?
No.
Ms. Watts?
No.
Dr. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Catronio?
Yes.
Motion fails 3-3-1.
Okay, that's no position. I believe, is that correct, Ms. Luking?
Yes, that is correct. Without a support or oppose, we take no position on the bill.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all your work on this. I know you've been working really hard, and to the entire team. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night. Next up is the High School 13 boundary review. Mr. Lubley.